Timmy slowly passed through all the halls and rooms, with 2 luxury pools, bar rooms, home theaters, and marble kitchens. Timmy was completely in awe of everything, far too nervous to touch anything, afraid that he'd break something. Continuing his exploration throughout the house, Timmy discovered the final room, a trophy room filled with awards for sales and medals of military victories. Walking about the room, Timmy eventually made his way to a painting showing a large depiction of the battle at Fort Salvation. What it had showed was massive silhouetted mudlarks slain about the blood-drenched battlefield. Buildings and land turned to corrosive slosh, the skies dark and orange hue, not from the sunset, but distant burning cities illuminating the horizon. Wounded soldiers and civilians alike helped up and treated from wounds, and a group of well-armed resistance fighters stood triumphantly above a mound of dead mudlarks, having retaken the center of the city. Looking down from the painting, Timmy noticed a metal plaque that read, "This depiction recognizes the bravery and will of the human race as hero of the resistance and our own Captain Jonathan Price, along with many others, take humanity's first major victory in pushing back and then later eliminating most of the iniquitous invaders of Earth. Memorial commissioned by the Never Forgotten Association." Timmy placed his hand upon the painting, feeling its rigid, detailed surface. Not made of just paint, but materials that matched the scenery, and things inside said scenery. From the unearthed ground feeling like soil, to the clothes on the soldiers feeling like cloth. Everything was so meticulously crafted, with such detail. His eyes strained as he stood back in admiration, examining every detail of the unique art piece. Doing so, he noticed a particular constant that appeared on a number of the different soldiers in the painting, being that of a medallion that leisurely laid across their chest. Looking closer at the medallions, Timmy realized that each of them were the same in style. Brown leather-looking straps that hung around the soldier's neck and connected to the center of the medallion. The center of which being a triangle, and in the middle of that triangle, an eye. Leaving from the median of each triangle would extend a deltoid, towards the tip of which would be a unique glyph in the same style as the one in the triangle. Lastly, there would be a ring that connected just past the middle of each deltoid. On the ring would be several glyphs that appeared to be from various ancient human races. As Timmy inched closer to the piece of art, his hand felt beckon to touch the medallion. He raised his hand, and hesitation crawled over him. Something in him pleaded to stop, and yet he could not comprehend why. He was so compelled and terrified to perform such a simple action. Cautiously, he stretched out his hand and gently brushed his fingers across the cold metallic surface of the medallion. Then, with his breath bated, His vision was enveloped by an absolute darkness. His body ran cold, constricted by an unyielding pressure, with a sensation of liquid suffocating his lungs. His very mind dazed in a blurry shock, completely overwhelmed, until finally a deep red, blood-soaked fog filled the empty void in front of him. Timmy screamed and thrashed around, and yet nothing. His very soul would not heed to his instinctive reactions. Tears fled his eyes as a raw, primal fear rose inside him, with a lurking presence now rumbling in the distance. Shadowed and hidden just out of view, before bursting across in a cacophony of rattling, infinitely spanning, inconceivably gargantuan chains that traversed like lightning in all directions. The burst of sound pounded at Timmy's core as he wailed, and suddenly the chains went taut, and with this they became clearer in their appearance. As his swollen, bloodshot eyes gazed upon this eldritch visage before him, it burned his eyes to look too long and yet closed. The fear he felt only solidified. "Timmy," a soft voice echoed across the scarlet-fogged void. His eyes tore open as they shifted hesitantly in all directions, and yet all he could see were cracked and rusted chains. "Timmy," growled another much gravelier, resounding voice. This time the chains shook and shifted, and a new shadow filled the fog. Undulating masses of varying shapes and sizes writhed in a mixture of aggression and restraint. "Timmy," he heard again, only this time the voice sounded like his own, only heavier and distorted. His vision filled with absolute blackness, before falling sensation met with him flailing his arms, closing his eyes, only for him to reopen them to the art piece still before him. Stunned and gasping for air, Timmy's fingers and toes curled as he tried to peel himself from the tiled floor beneath him. Staring off completely deadpanned, Timmy shook his head and smacked his face. "Yeah, okay, no," he said in a stutter as he rushed out of the room.